this is a little bit of a different format. It's pretty much going to be me here with 19 prototypes, slower, more methodical. If that's not your thing, no problem, just come back tomorrow. Today's video is, oh that sun's bright. Today's video is a little bit different. In the comments yesterday, Jason Holland said, "Loving the energy of this video today, Magnus." Thank you, Jason. "Would be great to see loads of prototypes, both structurally, mechanically, and the surface finish, and understand why each one was rejected." Okay, that's what I'm going to do today. I've got this camera set up because it's going to do a close-up on each sort of prototype that I show you, and so it's just easier than trying to focus in like that like I did in yesterday's video. The editing's a nightmare, but this should be easier for me and better for you, a clearer image. Anyway, initially I'll explain what this is. Actually, I need a set of keys to explain this to you. Okay, so these are my keys here, and as you can see here, this is the pocket clip that I use sort of on a daily basis, so that clips onto my pocket. Now, what I'm going to show you here is this. This was the first prototype, so I'm going to put this onto my keychain. So the idea is that this here loops onto your belt loop, so it doesn't hang in your pocket or anything like that. It just goes through your belt loop and hangs up in here. In fact, I'll have to give you a bit of a demonstration to show you how it works. So the idea behind this, you twist it one way and then the other way around the belt loop, and it's like a sort of double lock, kind of like a safety lock, and it just hangs in your belt loop. In fact, I should mention that I'm not 100% sure that these 19 prototypes are in the correct order. They're roughly right, but not 100% right. Some of them are so similar I don't know which one came before the other one. But I've sort of placed them in the way that sort of seems to make sense. This first one, this had a gap here because the idea was that you'd press it together and it would open the space there. So this was going to be tight against there, you'd press it together. But as you can see, there wasn't enough movement and there was already a big gap there. So that was the first one out of the way. So the second one, a bigger gap there and a tighter gap there. And so you just push it like that. Now I can't quite remember why this one didn't quite work. I think the opening and closing feature just wasn't quite right. So on the next one here, as you can see, I put my name in it just for fun. Looked horrendous, so I never did it again. I think I went back to the basics. I found I took this part further down. So on the previous one it only came up to there. I took it further down, it needed that extra. And I believe I took this a little bit further over as well. So there was more here and more here. I made it solid instead of like sort of skeletonized and all cut away, and just put a loop on the end down here. Now this one is going back to the old design. As you can see here, I made this part shorter and I made the gap in here bigger. The rest is the same as the first two prototypes. Not much difference other than that. I think it was mainly just function at this point. The one after that was this one. As you can see, it's a lot bigger. And the other thing with that is that I've taken the ridges away. There was ridges here for a thumb grip. I took those away. But again, it was going for function. Next was this one here. Again, going back to the loop at the bottom. And the other thing is you'll be able to see here is that I had to take this part down. You see the extra bit there compared to here? So this one stops there. But on this one, I took it further down because it needed it. I think it was coming off too easily. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're 6 prototypes in so far, so like we're a third of the way there. So next up was number 7, making it a bit simpler again. These parts were identical. I think it was just purely aesthetics, just filling this in again to see how it would look. However, after this, number 8, things change quite significantly. I think I go back to a simpler version again. Now truthfully, this one could have been an earlier version. I don't know if this is quite the right order, but I'll run with it anyway. It's overall, it's like 90% right. So I went back to a fairly aggressive sort of thumb grip there, and this is the first one where I gave it an angle. So it seemed to work better at an angle because it made it easier to put it on and off, and it also sat better sort of on your belt loop. I don't know if you noticed, but this is a lot thicker than the other one. I went for some thicker material there. After this, I experimented with this one. You can see the main difference. It's slightly bigger. I put a little bit of a ridge there, and the reason for that was to stop, to help stop the belt it coming off automatically. It turned out that this was more of a problem than a feature, so I stopped that. The next one, a lot more aggressive. You can see the loop there. Thinned it down a lot. More aggressive there. You'll also notice rather than just rounded ends here, I gave them a bit of a point. Don't know if you can see that. I gave them a bit of a point there. Oh, actually, just out of interest, this is my titanium mechanical pencil that I'm using as a pointer. It works really well. So after this one came prototype number 11. Now this one's hideous. I don't know what I was doing here. I made it out of really, really thick material, and I polished it up. The surface finish is really bad. You can see in the shadow there. It's just speckled by, but it's fine for prototyping. It doesn't really matter what the finish is like. For this one, went back to non-pointy. So obviously on this one with the pointy bit there and there, that was a one-off. I never did that on any further ones, and just gave it a bit more body, a bit more volume. Now number 11. Let's see what I did here. Yep, it's still keeping with the angle. Cut it out again. I'm all about stripping away what doesn't need to be there. I don't really have a design philosophy as such. I'm not even sure what that is, but I strip away everything that doesn't need to be there. That's one thing I do in everything. If it doesn't need to be there, it gets taken away. And this is a good example. Like, it just, take it away because it doesn't need to be there. This one here, pretty much the same. The only real difference is, I don't know how well you can see it, but you see how this goes straight down? This one comes in, like, I'll twist it around a bit. So it's just easier to get onto the belt loop. I remember this one vividly because on the next prototype, this one here, I took it away again because it looked like it was easier, but it wasn't. It actually made it worse. Now I know what you're thinking, this one looks like it's flipped around the wrong way. It's not. If you look at these parts, they're in the same. I thought maybe it's going to be easier to use it this way rather than this way. I tried it once, and no, I went back again. It had the opposite effect. It was really difficult. This is prototype number 14. As you can see, giving it a bit more shape to it. It's evolving, so this functional part hasn't changed in the last few prototypes. It was obviously working pretty well, and it's more aesthetics now, so that's what I do. I go for function first and then aesthetics later. Now this is prototype number 16. Again, cutting away, things are getting thinner here. Thinner around here, thinner around here. More shapely, it's starting to look a bit better. Now I should point out, these were done over a period of 2 to 3 days. I never did it in one big batch, because I was carrying it with me sort of all day, every day. The latest prototypes I would take with me throughout the day, just testing and testing and testing. So that's why I knew that this was working fine. I didn't need to change this particular part. Now this is number 17. Now this one's ugly because it's the only one I never tumbled and did any finishing to. I'm not quite sure why. I think it might have been because I went too thin there and I wouldn't actually fit them on the belt loop. So if you look at the gap there compared to the gap here, it's a lot tighter, and I think it wouldn't even go on my belt loop. The other thing I had changed on it was this, giving it a sort of skeletonized look. So instead of having one big gap, which looked kind of weird, when you put two in, it starts to look a bit better. I made the hole smaller, which I don't think was quite right. It was a little bit too small then. So next up is the second last prototype, and that's this one here. Now this one's finished. I even polished this one. It was getting really close to being the final one. It's pretty much the same layout here, a little bit modified. Yeah, pretty much the same as the previous one. And finally, the last prototype, you should see a bit of a difference here. I'll try and get these both in for you. So what happened for this one was, I made a lot of changes. First thing, the thing that jumps out is that instead of just going for the round look up here, I thought it looked weird with these sort of angular areas, and then this roundness, I thought it looked odd. So I needed to give angles here that would tie in with these angles. So this looks sort of more cohesive. It just looks better overall, because I think this these two sort of design shapes clash. That's what sort of happened. I remember thinking that. And the other thing I did was, I thought, well, instead of just making a round hole at the bottom here, we'll make, we'll tie it in, we'll make it look, that classic 1, 2, 3 thing where it's decreasing in size. These are a little bit more aggressive than on here. I can see these are sort of little circles. These have a bit more bite, or whatever you'd call it. And interestingly, I don't know if I had to do it, I honestly can't remember. I went back to the points. You see how these are pointy compared to these round bits here? So maybe it was just for aesthetics, maybe it was for design, I'm not sure. I know that this was getting close to the final design. But the funny thing is, that's as far as I got. I never turned it into an actual product. It's not for sale on my website. I never took it further than this. This was almost a year ago, I believe. It functioned well, but I don't know what it was. I honestly can't remember. I just never took it further. Maybe it just wasn't functioning right, I'm not sure. Maybe it was as simple as, I'm not someone who carries keys on a belt loop. I put them in my pocket. I don't want things dangling and making a noise. That's not me. So maybe I just thought, I wouldn't use this. Why should I keep making it? I honestly don't know. Maybe, if there's enough interest, maybe I'll keep developing it. I'm not sure. Okay, so I'm not sure if you found that interesting. Truthfully, I found it interesting going through all those prototypes from a year ago, or however long ago it was. Now, as you may know, I've started giving you quotes at the end of my videos, and today's quote is unbelievably perfect. Now, as I mentioned earlier, there was 19 prototypes there. Now, here's a quote from Julie Andrews. "Perseverance is failing 19 times and succeeding the 20th. I gave up too soon.